Hello and welcome to Eye on Africa, France 24's program focused on the continent. I'm Charlie James, and these are the headlines. Ethiopia's parliament elects Saleh-Work Zewde as the country's first female president. The experienced diplomat is now Africa's only female head of state. The lone survivor of a 2005 migrant massacre in the Gambia campaigns for justice. Our correspondent talks to him about efforts to hold former President Yahya Jammeh responsible. And presidential candidates in Madagascar spending big to attract voters. Thanks to lax campaign finance laws, the country's elections are regularly among the world's priciest. She's been UN Undersecretary General, a special representative to the African Union, and now Saleh-Work Zewde is Ethiopia's first female president. She was elected to the ceremonial position by Parliament on Thursday. This 1 week after Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed appointed a cabinet with half the posts held by women. France 24 regional correspondent Julia Steer sent us this report with more on how Saleh-Work is part of the push to achieve gender parity in Ethiopia.
Saleh-Work Zewde was unanimously elected as Ethiopia's president by its two houses of parliament early in the day on Wednesday. Now, the role of the president is largely ceremonial. It's the prime minister who is the head of state and who holds executive power. But the move is still historic in a country that has seen huge shifts in its political system over the last few months since Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed took office last April. Now, Saleh-Work is currently a high-ranking diplomat with the United Nations. She serves as a special representative for the Secretary General to the African Union. In her first speech to Parliament, she stressed the importance of unity throughout the country and said she would continue to speak for women as she has done throughout her diplomatic career. Now, her nomination as president comes just a week after another historic move. Last week, the prime minister appointed 10 new female cabinet members, bringing the portion of female members in Ethiopia's cabinet to 50% and making Ethiopia just the third country in Africa to reach gender parity in its cabinet. Regional analysts are largely celebrating the move, saying that while Ethiopia still faces significant challenges, namely in the form of ethnic violence, that her nomination as president signals a continued opening in a country that has seen significant reforms so far this year.
Newly revealed video could revive an investigation into France's role in Rwanda's genocide against the Tutsi minority. On Thursday, French news outlet Mediapart released footage appearing to show the French army ignoring killings in the summer of 1994. The French military has denied knowledge of the Bisesero massacre until days after it began, but this video indicates they knew earlier. The following excerpt appears to show a French colonel being informed by a subordinate.
Yesterday we were in this village. I don't remember the name. People were hunting for Tutsis across the hills. There were houses burning everywhere, and people carried around pieces of torn flesh.
The Gambia recently launched a Truth and Reconciliation Commission to investigate abuses committed under former leader Yahya Jammeh. One of the worst atrocities during Jammeh's rule was the 2005 murder of 55 migrants mistaken for coup plotters. Martin Chire, a man from Ghana, was the sole survivor of that group. Now, 13 years later, Chire is the key witness in an international effort to bring Jammeh to justice. France 24's Sarah Sacco spoke with him about the fateful night he escaped.
We take the north direction from Banjul. So while we are going, a certain guy who is a Nigerian, he's praying, Allahu Akbar, Bismillah, and the man stopped the car. Who is that? The way the cutlass, the machete came in, and said, this is the guy. He just bring the guy down and use the cutlass, his backbone here, just slashes one, bah! And the blood is everywhere. So we know that we are going to die, you know. So everybody was just want to try if he can get his hand off from the wire. So I tried harder, and I was able to get my hand off from the wire. And I tell the guys, you know, I have my hand off from the wire. And they say, it's God who wants to save you so that you can tell the world how and why Jammeh have killed us. So I jumped from the pickup, and I heard back, who is that? And the gunshot passed over me, everywhere. Pop, pop. So I decided to relax small because the place is very dark in the forest. I heard a shout from the pickup side, "Oh, God save us, oh, God save us." Radijio, you know, in our local language, they are just crying for help. God save us, and gunshot follows.
Now, with Gambia's change of government, are you hopeful that those responsible will be brought to justice?
I heard that the government of Gambia at the day wants to cooperate for further investigation. So now it's up to the government of Ghana to take action, corroborate, to find true evidence. You know, there is evidence everywhere, unless they don't want to pursue it. But if you want to pursue this, there is evidence because there is junglers around, there is everybody around. We're talking about over 50 people. The day I've seen the Trial International and Human Rights Watch came into Ghana and looked for me for pursue this case, you know, I was very happy that, you know, one day I will see Yaya Jammeh in court, you know, saying that I'm not guilty or I'm guilty. If he is not guilty, then he must to prove someone, or he must to show us who is guilty at that time.
Candidates running in Madagascar's November presidential elections are spending big bucks on campaigning. Despite being one of the poorest countries in the world, its elections rank among the most expensive. Gael Borja takes a look at how tens of millions of dollars are used to attract voters.
In this helicopter flying over a sea of people is presidential frontrunner candidate Sahle-Work Zewde, cheered on by the masses below like a rock star. The show being broadcast live on television, on social media and giant screens, pop stars performing live. Sahle-Work Zewde's spending for this campaign is extravagant. This show of wealth fascinates Solange, a 43-year-old washerwoman. She's waited for 4 hours to see her idol. Meanwhile, less hardy supporters faint all around her. To please the crowd, it's all about bling-bling and promises.
There's Miami in the US, the French Riviera in France, but we have Tamatave, which we will transform just like in the US and just like in France. But it will be even more beautiful, my ladies and gentlemen.
The following day, Solange, back to hard work, remains starry-eyed.
I saw fireworks for the first time. It was really good. It made me happy. It reminded me of when I was 18.
Solange makes just €6 a month and is easy to impress. For her, this election is the promise of a better life.
I like Regilin. When he gets elected, I will ask him for money to feed my children and to buy some meat.
Many candidates and associations denounce this profusion of money that's difficult to quantify by the Control Commission.
The disparity in this election campaign is evident between the huge expenses they make compared to the poverty of the Malagasy people they're trying to convince. There's a gap. They make promises to people who are already victims of political corruption.
In Madagascar, the law doesn't impose a limit on electoral spending. The three presidential favourites, all former presidents, have the biggest funds of the campaign.
South Africa is scrapping a tax on 3 everyday items: bread, flour, and sanitary pads. This comes after years of activists campaigning to get rid of the VAT on sanitary pads. And here's why it's important. In South Africa, low-income girls miss as much as a quarter of school days because they can't afford the necessary hygiene products. Activists are celebrating the announcement, saying this is one step closer to getting free sanitary pads in schools. And staying now in South Africa, thanks to its climate and geology, the nation is an incredibly rich source of fossils. And with a string of recent discoveries, the country is becoming known as a paradise for paleontologists.
These archaeologists are on a short hike, but it could take them back 200 million years into the past. The team from Wits University is hunting for previously unknown species. They began after a student of Professor Jonah Chouanier found a fossil near the border with Lesotho in 2015.
She just found a few bones coming out. We started to excavate it, and we brought it back to the lab, and it turned out to be the hip of a species we'd never seen before.
The new discovery was one of the earliest relatives of modern crocodiles, which were the dominant carnivores on Earth at the time.
Imagine a crocodile crossed with a lion. Sort of very large, quadrupedal, legs right under the body, with these massive big jaws. Like I said, a very intimidating animal.
This prehistoric crocodile had never been found before in South Africa. The discovery has added to the country's reputation as a paleo paradise and caused excitement among a new generation of African scientists.
We have all these amazing things in our country, and we can show the world all the things we have. And I would like to eventually be able to tell the full story of, just the evolution of crocs.
The fossils must be properly studied, and it can take years for a new species to be fully accepted by the scientific community. Such a breakthrough is a major achievement for any paleontologist.
It's not every day we describe a new species of dinosaur, and I mean, it's obviously like one of the most fun parts of the job is saying, here's something that science didn't know about yesterday.
Chouanier and his team have already discovered that massive sauropod dinosaurs evolved to walk on 4 legs earlier than previously thought. Over 2/3 of South Africa's landmass is thought to hold fossils. Paleontologists will be busy here for years to come, trying to shed new light on the giants that once roamed the Earth.
That's all for this edition of Eye on Africa, but don't go away. The news is up next with Chris Moore.
Idi Amin Dada, Uganda's despotic leader, presided over his country in the 70s. He is remembered in very different ways. Some recall the hundreds of thousands who were killed and tortured. However, those who were born after that horrific era laud his lesser-known accomplishments. For them, he was as a builder, a nationalist, and a separatist, the leader of time in Uganda's history, which they regard as a bygone golden era.
We revisit the compiler of Idi Amin Dada here on France 24.